So this video, we're not going to go into the stats on what's happening with coronavirus. I'll do a video after this one where I go into the statistics of it. But let me just frame it a different way. All right. When it's all said and done, the mortality rate of this infection is far below 1%, number one. Number two, 90% of people that get this infection are going to be asymptomatic. That means for every 10 people or every one person that gets the infection, 9 out of 10, minimum, maybe even higher. Dr. Shabbat's out of Ontario says maybe up to 20 people. So for every one person that gets it, 19 to 20 are going to be asymptomatic. As low as 9 to 10 will be asymptomatic. That means your body got exposed to the virus. It's having an immune response and you're showing no symptoms. So in other words, there's a 90+% chance that you're asymptomatic. And number two is if you get sick and you actually have symptoms, 80% of those symptoms are going to be very mild. So in other words, if you kind of look at the 90% chance, right, and then you tail it with the 80% chance if you actually show symptoms, that's a 98 to 99% chance that if you get this virus or get exposed to it, you're going to virtually have very little problems addressing it. And you have a 90% chance that you won't even know you got it. So that's pretty awesome. So when you look at all the hysteria and everything that's happening on TV, you have to know those stats to begin with. And then the first thing I say is, am I doing more than 90% of the population? Or am I doing more than the 10% of the population that's really 10 or 20% out of that population that's getting sick? Am I doing more than 10 to 20% in regards to my immune system and health? And I would say if you're doing the right stuff, you're going to be in that 99% category for sure. Now, you're going to see lots of anecdotes on TV of one-offs of people getting sick. Number one, you don't know their health history. Two, you don't know their diet. You don't know what they eat. You don't know if they have any other pre-existing conditions. You don't know any of that stuff. So the problem is you're not going to have access to a lot of it. And the majority of people are going to be 75 and up and have multiple comorbidities like 99% of people in Italy had. So if you look at it, if I say, oh my God, you have a 1% chance of dying, right? And you're going to feel something. And if I say, oh my God, you have a 99% chance of not even having an issue at all, you also feel something with your body and your mind immune wise. So let's flip it in our brain and look at it like from the 99% chance. And that's not a 99% chance of living. That's a 99% chance that if you get it, there's no issue at all. It's totally over your head. You don't even know what's going on.
Yeah. And we'll wrap this up, but because I don't want to get too deep into this part, but I'll just.
The mindset's very important though.
Yeah. Well, and I agree with you, but what I'm going into is different. And I don't want to go off into a tailspin. But one thing that I'm noticing is that the media is focusing a lot on specific naming of people. So this celebrity has it, that celebrity has it, that celebrity has it. And it's almost as if it's to create, I don't know, more fear, because it's like, oh, I know that person. They think they know that celebrity. If it's patient 367, you're kind of like, oh man, that's bad for them. But if you're like, oh, Tom Hanks, it sort of, I think, creates a more visceral response. But as you mentioned, Tom Hanks has diabetes. I just read an article this morning about him having diabetes or being diabetic. I don't know if he still fits the diagnosis or what. But so as you mentioned just a minute ago, you lose sight of what else is going on with people. So it's really easy to compare and think, I'm a human, they're a human. But if they're diabetic and their diet's not good and they're traveling internationally, I mean, he was in like Australia, I think, traveling however many time zones to film for a movie. You can't compare yourself and your situation to them and think that you're just as vulnerable as them. It's just 100%. Not fair to yourself. It's not fair to yourself to try to say, because that happened, that'll happen to me. Because if you're at home, you're quarantined, you're eating good food, you've got your nutrition on board, your extra supplements on board, to me, I would try not to worry unless there's an urgent need to worry, if that makes sense.
Correct. And then, like you mentioned, when you go into these one-off kind of anecdotes, you lose perspective. And so like, I always like to give perspective because it gives you a frame of reference to go back to. So this flu season right now, we've had 155 pediatric deaths due to flu. How many of these pediatric deaths have been, let's say they did a one-off story on that person dying of flu? a 15-year-old or a 13-year-old or a 10-year-old kid dying of flu. You don't hear any of these things with the flu. All right. And that just tells you right now, if we're comparing apples to apples, there is an agenda by the media to hyper focus on this and to hysterize the issue. If there wasn't an agenda, show me all the photo ops of all the other kids of flu dying. Show me those stories. Okay, they're not there. And the reason why they're not there is because people are trying to create a lot more fear and gin up a lot more fear, and also decrease, the relative risk on other conditions that happen all the time that we live with, and we're very comfortable with it happening, and we know it happens, right? And that's the pediatric flu incidents, 155 dead so far this year.
Yeah, it's not good. It's not good. I wish I could change things, but I guess all we can do is try to help provide just a little bit of a different perspective than just the headlines. And hopefully that can help people to just get through this. We're all in it together. Unfortunately, everybody's affected globally. We've got clients all around the world. Justin and I work with people in Australia and Canada and Europe, and it's the same there too. So it's not just a US thing now at this point. Everybody's involved. So we hope to just help everybody keep your heads up and keep pushing forward.
And also with the comparison, I don't want to minimize any of the 155 that died of flu that are pediatrics, that are kids. That's already sad. But just know all the information we're providing today is going to help you from all conditions. It's not like, hey, this supplement's going to just help you for the coronavirus or the flu virus. They're going to improve your immune system, and your immune system will be so much more intelligent and strategic in dealing with all types of immune stressors. So keep that in the back of your head. We don't want to make light of anything, but at the same time, we want to compare people's responses, and those responses reveal the emotional overdrive to get you to feel something more about this versus that.
Yeah, good point about the immune support, right? This podcast will still apply a year from now, even if nothing in the media is like this. This applies all the time. So it just becomes a little more important now that you focus on this stuff. So, I've had some clients too reporting that they're stress eating. I mean, my wife went to Whole Foods, and guess what? All the cookies were sold out. The graham crackers, the cookies, any kind of sweet stuff. You could still get bad food at Whole Foods. It was all sold out. So even if it's a gluten-free cookie, that still is that blood sugar metabolic stress we talked about in the beginning. So I would say do the best you can to stay dialed in. This is maybe you have a cookie as a treat, but you don't want to go off the rails too much, because remember that metabolic stress is immune stress, and the immune stress weakens you. We don't want that.
Exactly.
Were there any other questions? I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I was just going to ask about any questions. I didn't have them pulled up.
Yep. So in general, I'll pull it up here. We want to be on top of our immune system. And we also talk about the reason why the fear is so important is because of the cortisol response. And like you highlighted, that those surges of cortisol will weaken our immune system. So the reason why I am so on top of it and you're so on top of it is we want to have a strong immune system. And if we can reframe how information is getting exposed to us, like I mentioned, versus the 99% chance of there being no issue at all, even with the infection, then that gets us a lot more hope, and that creates a different immune response.
Yeah, and the cortisol affects the gut, and the gut, a lot of the immune system exists or happens. The immune system activity can happen from good gut health. So that's why you don't want that cortisol damaging that gut barrier. This is why athletes, after too hard of exercise, they may have diarrhea, for example. That cortisol can be damaging on the gut.
Exactly. Yep. Exactly. And then I've Barb writes in about being worried about contacting her 95-year-old mother. Yeah. Just remember, just stay that 6 feet. The coronavirus doesn't have wings, so it can't fly. It's an aerosolized droplet that has to make its way over there. So number one, if you're afraid of being asymptomatic, you can always wear a mask, which will decrease the spread out your mouth. And for the most part, you're only going to have a spread if you're coughing. Right. So if you're not coughing and you're not actively sick, you're more than likely fine. You just keep a 6-foot distance, and then just make sure if you're going to interact with someone that could be immune compromised, make sure everything's washed going in there, washed in between. Don't ever touch something. And then if you're dealing with that person who's older, make sure they're washing in between and washing after you leave, and maybe washing down any counters that you may be near as well. Right. But that'd be the biggest thing. And if you're really concerned above and beyond, worst case, you could wear a mask if you're really concerned. But mask really going to matter more if you're healthcare people and you're interacting with people more, or if you are actively coughing or have a cough that you may not be able to control. Right. It's like a cough sometimes, or a sneeze. right? Sometimes that can be hard to control. So if you're in that category where you feel like it could happen, then a mask may be smart if you have to interact with that person. But that 6 feet buffer zone will give you a lot good window. I saw the data. If you live in the same house as a person, you only have a 5% increased chance of contracting, 5%. So it's not that much more. And if you use good practices and you're not sneezing, then it gets even better.
Yeah, I would just say if you're somebody who you're having like tree pollen allergies, since everything's blooming this time of the year right now, then, and you know you're going to be sneezing and you're not sure if you're a carrier, then yeah, I think that mask would be smart.
Yep. And ideally, if that's the case, I just wouldn't interact. I'd be even further just
That
to
too.
be safe.
That too,
Yep.
until things pass. Yeah.
Yeah. I've been using a lot of Instacart for my groceries, and that's been really helpful because they drop it off. And a couple things you can do is you can do some of the On Guard or Thieves essential oil, and you can dilute a little bit of that in water and just kind of spray everything. If they drop off your groceries, nothing's really warm in there. You can leave it in the sunlight for like an hour or two, and the fresh air will typically kill any viruses as well. And a lot of times the Instacart people, one, they're wearing masks, and two, they're actually wearing gloves. So they're doing a pretty good job on their protocols for picking stuff up. Instacart's going to be a service that they'll do the grocery shopping for you. So they're doing a pretty good job. But if you want to go the extra mile, that's how you could do it on top of it. I just wouldn't recommend leaving meats or butter or those kind of things out in the sun, obviously for common sense reasons.
Right.
Is there anything else you want to highlight, Evan?
No, that's it. Did you have any other questions that popped up that were relevant? If not, we'll wrap it up.
No, I mean, there's a lot of things we could talk about in regards to the immune system and what we could do nutritionally, but we've done other podcasts on that, so I don't want to be a broken record. So take a look, see those other podcasts for the references on what to do to boost your immune system up. And we'll try to put some links down below as well for y'all. All right, Evan, today was great. Hey, if you guys are having immune issues or you want to be more on the preventative side, or you're like, hey, I want to start getting my health better now, what better time than everyone being at home and having a lot more time to start working on these things. So feel free, head over to evanbrand.com, go reach out to Evan. And then Dr. J, myself at justinhealth.com. Feel free, you can click and schedule. We're happy to help you all out. And again, especially during this time, you don't have to drive to a doctor's office that could be loaded with lots of, flu and other viruses. And this is a great way to start moving forward while you got time.
Absolutely. Yeah. We work 100% virtually. We may not mention that every time, but we assume most people figure that out by listening and looking on the website. But yeah, so we send labs to your door. You do those labs. UPS or FedEx picks those up and then returns them back to the lab. And then we jump on a call, Skype, FaceTime, Zoom, whatever. We then review those and then we make a protocol to get you feeling better. So that's how we work. And we're very blessed and very grateful for the opportunity. And the labs so far have been doing great with turnaround times. We haven't seen any lag or delay. We've got nutrients that we have stocked up on, Justin and I both personally. So we've got supply, which is good. A lot of places are sold out of stuff for immune. So luckily we kind of thought a little bit ahead of the game here.
Yeah. And let us know, put your comments down below. If you got the dreaded corona, let me know what you're doing with it. If you got other infections right now, or you're feeling sick, let me know your experience, what's working, what's not. And if you're enjoying this stuff, give us a thumbs up, give us a share, let your family and friends know. We really appreciate it. We want to empower everyone here. Last
note, I saw that one Chinese study that came out that 80% of people that tested positive, it was a false positive. So that's really why makes me scratch my head.
Yeah, I don't love the idea of the testing because it's going to create more numbers, and those more numbers are going to create more hysteria and more panic. And I always tell people more numbers actually mean that the virus is actually weaker, because that means the mortality rate actually drops, right? But I don't like the idea that there's a false positive 50 to 80% of the time. So
that's bad. A maximum 80% false positive. I mean, that is humongous. If we just deleted 80% from the numbers of the cases, I mean, that would be unbelievable how different it would look.
And then how I interpret that's a little bit different. How I interpret it is, if you're around people that could be immunocompromised or are going to be older, go through the extra precautions, whether it's you quarantine for them, or you go through extra measures like washing hands, which you should be doing anyway, but maybe you do gloves. Maybe you want to do a mask that you recycle just to be extra careful. I'm fine with that. Just pretend like you already have it, and more for the immunocompromised, more for the elderly. But get sunlight, get some fresh air. If you can leave your house and you're not in like New York City where things are congested, go in your backyard, get some fresh air, get some walk, get some vitamin D. All that stuff's going to be great. Don't be cooped up inside unless you're of that population risk factor and you're in a part of the country where you have to be. Everyone's going to do better getting that fresh air and vitamin D.
Yep, and we're running our air
Natural vitamin D.
purifiers like always too. So this would be another good time if you don't have air purification, you are trapped inside. Air purifiers are a good strategy. So we could put some links for that as well. We've got a couple of recommendations.
And our air purifiers that we're recommending will filter out viruses. So if you're in that area and you're in someone's home, right, crank up that air purifier. That way it's going to clean everything out and less chance of getting more exposure. But again,
Yep.
risk factors are going to be pretty low if you're doing all the right things.
Yep. Awesome.
All right,
Well, check
Evan.
out the websites if you need help. Once again, Dr. J at justinhealth.com, me at evanbrand.com. We'll be in touch. You all take care.
Excellent, everyone. You guys have a good one. Stay safe. Peace.
Bye-bye.